Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Channel 781 News Debrief. Um, Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about our Assistant City Solicitor, John Cervone. We're going to talk a little bit about updates on the Fernald, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Moody Street decision. There was a traffic commission meeting that just happened. Joining us is our regulars, Jamie Gerkelis.
Hi, everyone.
And new regular, Saul.
Hi.
So jumping into it, there isn't actually that much to talk about. I think this will be famous last words, but our shortest debrief ever because I just recently binged a month's worth of city council stuff. Nothing too super interesting. And there's some things that we're like kind of waiting on, like the MBTA Communities Act. It was talked a little bit about in ordinance and rules, but we're kind of just like waiting to see like something more concrete. There was a continuation of a resolution that Paul Brasco put in 7 years ago that I remember pretty much came to nothing. Now he's trying to link it to the MBTA Communities Act now, having to do with veterans housing. He says this disgusting line here.
We can open emergency shelters in only days, shut down recreational facilities, and convert office buildings into shelters for illegal immigrants. But we don't do the same for the very people who wore the uniform of this great country.
We're kind of just waiting to see how everything plays out a little more before diving into that discussion. We're going to be talking about updates about the Fernald, but really, like we've talked about this at length many times, and so we don't really want to beat a dead horse by saying that the Fernald plan is bad. But we are going to give a little bit of update. And yeah, then that's pretty much the only interesting things that have happened in the past month, I feel like. I'm going to quickly talk a little bit about what I thought was the only interesting thing was in this city council, which, really like there are many people that really pride themselves on being like hallmarks of frugality. They were a little uncomfortable, but it didn't stop them from agreeing to pay John Cervone, who was our city solicitor, and I found out on air a few episodes ago that he stepped down, which was true. He steps down to the assistant city solicitor position, and he had the gall to come into the city council face to face and say, "I'm going to step down from from city solicitor to assistant city solicitor, but I'm going to ask for the same amount of money, which is over $200,000. I think it's 240. Don't quote me. It's over $200,000 a year. So he's basically demoting himself and getting paid exactly the same amount of money. And of course, as someone who's paid $200,000 in a lawyer would say, he had very a compelling argument about how he's transitioning and he's going to do the exact same thing he's been doing, blah 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 blah. Blah. But it's just for a city council, which time and time again has declared frugality to stop many things from happening in the city council. They had absolutely no issue, except for Tom Stanley, who, in a moment of clairvoyancy, grew a spine and said, "This is weird and I'm uncomfortable," and he actually voted no. Besides him, who he's not actually the most conservative, frugal city councilor either, but everybody else, especially the dean of the council, who apparently has known him for the entirety of his tenure, seemed to have no issue at all with spending $240,000 for an assistant city solicitor.
As the chair of the finance department, it's one of my obligations, obviously, to watch the dollars and cents. But there is an expression too that sometimes it's better to be a penny wise as opposed to a pound foolish. And you'd become the assistant. You still take on the salary of the solicitor, but like others councils have said, what would that cost me in the long run if I had to bring somebody else in at a lesser rate? Will it be double the time? And at the end of the day, it's the same money. So there's certain areas where certain spending might sound fiscally irresponsible, but in the long term is in the best interest of the city. So,
thank you. To be candid, we work for the mayor. I continue for at least a short while to be the city solicitor. So I answer to the mayor. I get my directions and what my priorities are through the mayor. Out of the directives and priorities that the mayor has given me, Attorney Lockman wants to alter those. I have no problem with that as long as the mayor is okay with that. Unless that's what the mayor wants us to do, or, as I said, I have no problem in giving up something that's not that critical, and that the mayor is okay with me shifting to someone else.
No, it's very clear that there has been no transition plan. We have attorneys that have been in the solicitor's office for years, and there's been no plan to bring anyone along up until this point, no plan to hire someone with expertise in this area, and quite frankly, what is shallow and unnerving is that the city did not prepare for this, and that more of us aren't concerned about it.
And so I just thought that was a very funny moment for me in the city council, and I will remember that when the next time the unhoused population of Waltham ask for $10,000 and are denied. Moving on. So Jamie is going to talk a little bit about the Fernald, kind of just where we've been at. There have been a few meetings. Jamie, you've also been recording some of those, so thank you for doing that.
Well, yeah, it's my pleasure. So basically there was a public input meeting last night on March 27th. And that happened because Colleen Bradley MacArthur got it scheduled on the 24th. Just this last Sunday was another separate meeting for the People's Fernald, which is a group of people that are organizing. There were a number of people that have been involved in the recording of the site, and were expressing like their concerns with the process that has been taking place over the last few years, as well as concerns about what the future development of the site will look like, including Oliver Egger, who is one of the grandchildren of Walter Fernald. And he talked a bit about his father's relation, or his grandfather's relationship to the site, as well as expressing a wish for better stewardship of the site by the city and more of a collaborative process for everyone involved. Councillor Darcy also talked at that meeting about the
Ex-Councillor Darcy.
Ex-Councillor Darcy talked at that meeting about the impact of the MWRA project and the site traffic that will be causing as a result of it, which was on the order of, I wish I could have the tip of my tongue right now, but I think it was on the order of several hundred trucks. I want to say a day, but that sounds like a lot. But anyway, the result of that, all that sort of organizing and work in the council getting this prepared, was the public input meeting yesterday, which there is a Reddit post summing up all of the people who provided input, which we'll provide a link for here. But there were some strong supporters. There were a number requesting a less intensive recreation plan, and a number calling out the need for a comprehensive plan for the entire site. Some of the list of things that were voiced as things desired on the site were: people want housing, they want a more productive use of the buildings as they were on the site, they would like some sort of security company or plan for public access to the site, and the public access would be so that people can police the site and have, like, you know, more, because currently it's just vandals that would be on the site and police trying to prevent them from that. The lack of conservation restrictions is also brought up because, and essentially this means that without those conservation restrictions, there's no body to tell the city to oversee what the city's doing in terms of its development. Some of the things was also mentioned was the lack of access, or the primacy of access by car as opposed to bike and foot access, and also the fact that this hasn't been connected in any way to any of the bike trails that have been going on around it, and it does not connect like the south side of Waltham by any kind of method other than car. A number of people expressed that they sort of felt powerless by this whole sort of process. There were also a number of state reps or candidates for state rep for Middlesex 9, which is one of our reps. So we had Heather May.
I'm Heather May. I live here in Waltham. I just want to talk briefly about the transparency of the process. I would like to thank those counselors who voted in favor of having this hearing because it's long overdue. The last hearing or public input opportunity that happened was December 7th of 2021. And at that meeting, the rec department and the engineer presented the recreational plan. The people who attended that meeting thought that they were coming to give ideas and input on what they wanted to happen at Fernald, and that is not what happened at that meeting. There was no input, and I personally felt very bad for the two people who were running that meeting who didn't realize that the public had had no say in this particular recreation plan. Transparency doesn't happen at the end. It happens through the process.
And I didn't catch the name of the person, the person who's running as an independent, but I will splice that in.
I'm Sean Diamond, and as of earlier this morning, I believe I'm the only independent candidate for state rep in Middlesex 9th District. Hello. I do want to thank all the counselors that had the bravery to vote to have this public hearing. I understand there were some counselors that don't, and I understand that from the comments in the audience today, there's some folks that want to just see the existing plans as they are, move forward as quickly as possible. I want to make sure that we know that people don't just want to be heard, they want to be listened to. They want to have their questions answered. They need to have their questions answered. People want a sense of control over their lives, especially where they live and where their children live. We elect a mayor to get things done, and that's true. But we elect a city council to get things done the right way. People want a transparent and collaborative process. That's come up almost a dozen times from different speakers. People need ongoing engagement and open communications. Insights about what's happening and why before it happens. Options that fit their needs. They shouldn't have to piece it together on social media and through neighborhood gossip. Waltham deserves better. Waltham deserves a comprehensive plan for Fernald and beyond.
And I think that is my list of stuff.
Yeah, shout out to Never Ever PBJ Reddit user for that very succinct synopsis of the Fernald meeting. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just like, disappointed at what's going on with the Fernald, along with everybody else. And, this public hearing is like the big success of electoralism and involved in all of this. Like, this is what has come from years of organizing in the progressive realm for things. But really, a public input session, while important, is kind of powerless in that it's, we're not even asking questions. We're just talking at city councilors. And, people, city councilors will use this when it is useful for them. Like, if this public input session, if 100 people came out and said that they liked the Fernald for what it was, the Waltham channel, when reporting on it, would have listed everyone's comments and wrote a very long article. But because this meeting was mostly people not in favor of it, the Waltham channel's article does not even list the people's comments. It's just like, this happened, here's a recording. But like, when the Moody Street thing happened, when there was released a petition of business folks and their decision and their opinions about Moody Street, because it favored the mayor's conclusion to Moody Street, they spent a long time talking about everyone's points. But if that petition had said they favored Moody Street being closed off to cars, that petition would not have made Waltham Channel's front news, and they wouldn't have spent so much time. And so these public input sessions, they're useful, but without like a very strong uh, hold on the city council, it's just a tool that no one will use. And because we don't have enough city councilors to make a difference, this tool is not being used effectively. You know, me along with everybody else would like to see the Fernald go another way, but I am feeling disheartened. And I would certainly like to see something else happen. And it's the same thing with John Servant. I meant to say this earlier, but the reason why he's getting paid $240,000 a year and why the Hallworths of Frugality are okay with that is because John Servant is a Walthamite and has been in the city for a very long time. You know, if someone with the same credentials from outside of the city came in, they would laugh at the idea of demoting them and getting paid the same amount. But because nepotism rules the world, and because Waltham's political structure favors the same 100 families that have lived here for decades, uh, things like that can happen. This outlandish idea that John Servant should get paid the same amount of salary for being demoted, that is totally fine. That is a near unanimous 11 yeses to 1 no's, and that's fine because when you get into the municipal government, when you get to municipal politics, the world's not so black and white, and the questions of frugality, it's more of a nuanced conversation where, you know, if we're talking about Waltham people, then we're fine. Then we should definitely be spending more money.
One of the things too regarding frugality that was brought up was one of the people expressing concern was about like how a lot of these improvements and stuff are things that are going to require maintenance down the line, including like the train. And what was also interesting is like when it comes to the sort of frugality and how stuff gets spent, another person mentioned that the engineering company that was contracted for this sort of looked like a one-person operation. And I mean, even the plans that they're going off of, at least the public ones that I've got behind me here, those aren't even up to date with what they're apparently doing or what they have planned. Because I heard in a meeting they were talking about that there's these ones have like one of the things that's shown on here isn't actually on there. I mean, it's one of the buildings, I believe, like I think the skating rink or something. But either way, the issue is that the plan isn't up to date or public, and that there's an issue with the transparency of that whole process. So that was what they were raising.
Yeah, fuck that train. Okay, moving on to our last bit. Saul is going to give an update on what's going on with the Traffic Commission and Moody Street.
Hi. So last Thursday, March 21st, the Traffic Commission had their monthly meeting. If you recall from our previous special on Moody Street, Mayor McCarthy had sent a letter to the Traffic Commission and to the city councilors on February 21st saying that she's not proposing that Moody Street be closed to cars this year like it had been in various iterations the past 3 years, and that if restaurants want to serve outside in the parking areas, they can do so. Long story short, the Traffic Commission rubber stamped that and okayed that last Thursday. So the Moody Street will be open to traffic 24/7, no restrictions on car travel. If restaurants so choose, they can apply for a permit to occupy the parking space in front of their business with Jersey barriers and serve outside with traffic next to moving traffic. So it started off this was the first item on the agenda. So Councilor Harris, the Ward 8 councilor. So this section of Moody Street is both Wards 8 and 9. I think the line goes down the middle. One half is Ward 8, one side is Ward 9. So Councilors Logan and Harris represent this section of Moody Street. So right away, Councilor Harris started off by mentioning this petition that about 40 or so business owners had signed and sent to the Traffic Commission, I think just to the police chief. I don't know if the petition was sent to the city council also, but city councilors got hold of it. Mind you, some of these small businesses included the post office, for instance, on Spruce Street was one of the signatories of this petition. But Harris basically just pointed right to this petition saying, look, here are 40 business owners saying, without any evidence, okay, no business owner has ever presented any financial statements or any evidence to back up their claims that because Moody Street has been closed to car traffic in various forms for the past 4 summers, For the 2020 to 2022, it was fully closed to car traffic 24/7. If you recall, last summer, it was just Thursday afternoon till Monday morning that it was closed to car traffic. But this petition has basically said, because of this last setup the last 4 years, our businesses are on the brink of financial ruin. Again, no evidence to back this up, but this is what Councilor Harris just said in her statements to the Traffic Commission. She did not mention the city survey. So the city social media team had posted a survey on the website. We can link to it. The survey is actually, you have to go to archive.org. The survey itself is no longer online, but the city had posted a survey last, about a year ago, I think it was end of last March, saying, are you a Waltham resident? Do you support closing Moody Street to cars? And if so, why or why not? And I obtained the results of that survey last spring from the city social media manager. There were about 500 or so respondents. About 80% of them were in favor of closing Moody Street to cars, not just about outdoor dining. In other words, 80% didn't say, I like eating outdoors. A lot of them were also, I like a car-free space. I like the public space that the street became. But anyway, Councilor Harris did not mention the results of that survey. I don't even know if she has seen the results of that survey. Probably has, because between her and Logan, many constituents had sent messages supporting closing the street to cars. One kind of inappropriate thing I felt was Councilor Harris mentioned specifically business owners of color when talking about these 38 business owners. I don't know the racial breakdown of them, but it doesn't really matter. That shouldn't be entering the picture. Both the tone of her comments and what the Waltham channel reported in their kind of vignettes of 5 or so business owners that they put online last week was kind of pitting the small business owner, so the dollar store owner, the barbers, against the restaurant owners. I mean, all of these restaurant owners are small businesses also. As far as I know, I think Banchan, the Korean fried chicken place, is part of a chain. I don't know if it's a franchise or not. I don't know the business arrangement, but all of the restaurants on Moody Street are locally owned small businesses also. These are not like big chains, big restaurant chains that are on Moody Street. They are all locally owned as well. So this whole notion of pitting the small businesses, the barbershop, the nail salons, the dollar stores against somehow restaurant owners that are also small businesses, and the restaurant industry is notoriously a tough industry to stay in business in. The whole tenor of that, both from Councilor Harris and from the Waltham Channel reporting, just not appropriate. I mean, they're all small businesses. They all have their various struggles. One kind of interesting thing was, I mean, parking obviously was the big issue in this petition. None of the restaurants have ever gone on the record. None of the restaurant owners have ever gone on the record saying parking is an issue for my customers, when the restaurants are the ones that have taken up the parking in front of their businesses. Kind of makes you think, well, maybe if your business is worth going to, if your business is special, like some of the restaurants are, potentially, people will figure out how to get there. And if your businesses are a barbershop or a nail salon, of which there are dozens in Waltham, well, maybe the issue is not parking. Maybe it's that your business is not notable, or people won't go there if they're slightly inconvenienced. But anyway, the way Councilor Harris just framed it was small businesses against restaurants.
And gives much needed parking for some of the small businesses that are not restaurants. I will say this publicly for the record, that I received as well as the Ward 9 councilor and the mayor, we received a survey and a petition done by all non-restaurant small businesses on Moody Street. There's over 38 persons of color owned businesses that serve various aspects of our community, small markets, specialty markets, and they are 100% opposed to this in their name, address, and number that they pushed, and then they signed physically a piece of paper. They stated that they've had to dip into their savings in order to keep their businesses afloat during the summertime. We want to do something for the community. We want to do something to keep outside dining popular and meet the need of constituency and provide something for the community. But we certainly don't want to do that at small business expense or at the expense of public safety.
Councilor Logan followed up, also kind of mentioned the petition.
Chief and members of the commission, I don't envy your position. It's a very difficult issue. It seems to be one of those 50-50 issues. I've received quite a few emails from constituents who are upset that we're not closing the street. I know some of the restaurants wanted to close the street. On the other hand, as Councilor Harris related to you, we received a petition from 40 businesses on Moody Street, 40 businesses on Moody Street against closing the street. So it's one of those issues that, it's a 50-50 issue.
He also kind of waxed nostalgic about back years ago, him and when Sally Calera was on the council, they had proposed a resolution to allow outdoor dining after seeing Lexington and other towns doing outdoor dining before the pandemic. But as far as I know, there was no outdoor dining in Waltham before the pandemic 4 years ago. So restaurants will be able to apply to the Traffic Commission for a permit to occupy their parking spaces. The consideration of whether this is safe, eating next to traffic behind Jersey barriers, both the fire chief, Mullen, and the police chief O'Connell spent several minutes talking about this. If you recall, last year, even though the restaurants were able to leave out their tables from Monday to Thursday afternoon when the street was open to traffic, they were not allowed to serve during that time. They couldn't serve customers. They could only use it when the street was closed to traffic from Thursday night until Sunday night. So there were concerns about, from the police chief, about drivers speeding on Moody Street.
As a public safety official myself, I have concerns about speed going up and down Moody Street, north and southbound. And I would have to have those concrete barriers totally encircled there. And maybe even, we discussed before, we actually had them out there when we had the speed humps, not the permanent speed humps, chief, just for someone to slow them down.
I know from just personal observation, like during the day, there's so much traffic, people parallel parking, no one is going fast. Come nighttime, some drivers do treat that as a drag strip, Moody Street, especially when there were fewer people parking, when the street is a lot more wide open. It was kind of like weird just hearing the Traffic Commission talk about concerns about speeding and reckless driving when they are the body that can address this. They are the body that can enact street redesigns to discourage and to make it more difficult for drivers to behave recklessly. The other thing is, like, if you're so concerned about reckless driving next to diners that are behind foot-thick concrete blocks, what about anyone else walking in Waltham, like on a sidewalk, or when there's not even a sidewalk in Waltham? Why is reckless driving only a concern for diners behind these thick Jersey barriers and not anyone else walking on Moody Street or Main Street or Lexington Street or any other street where your protection is basically a 6-inch curb?
What's fascinating too in these traffic commission meetings is how things like traffic accidents and stuff just get treated like the weather, as opposed to things like you said, anything they have control over. But then also their priorities are at odds with that. So you'll have the reason why the Moody Street thing was kept so wide open, even when it was open last year to cars, was because they had to keep it wide enough for the fire trucks to go down at the specific speed. And it's well, that's going to make it easier for a lot of smaller cars to also go down at that speed too, which is the case. And when we have roads that wide.
Yeah, I mean, there's just to get into the urbanism aspect, there's a great book called, I think it's called There Were No Accidents. Just touching upon that, traffic collisions, car crashes are not the weather. Okay, there are things that you can do to minimize these things. These are not accidents. And to hear the fire chief and the police chief talk about concerns about something they have control over. Okay, they can, between CPW, they can redesign streets to make it safer for everyone, and to just not even be cognizant of that is just kind of so on brand for urbanism in Waltham. So one other concern that Fire Chief Mullen raised was about parking. So the Embassy parking deck behind what used to be the Embassy Theater, now is the dance studio, is also a theater component to it. So the top level has been closed since last May for structural reasons on the ramp, I think, going up to it. Starting in July, that entire parking structure is going to be closed for up to about 3 months for completely redoing it. I think the contractor RFP is out for bid right now to do that. So Fire Chief Mullen expressed concern, oh, we're losing all this parking, and now we're going to rope off 100 parking spots for restaurants. Where are people going to park?
With the parking deck closed, how is this going to impact the parking supply in the whole entire area? We start roping off 100 more parking spaces, nobody's going to be able to park down there.
Well, first of all, this is not 100 parking spots for restaurants. I don't even know how many restaurants are going to take part in this year, given that the ambiance of open Moody Street's not there anymore. But at most, it's maybe 15, 20. And also the city parking map. So there's a GIS map that the city links to. There are 400, I counted it, 403 off-street parking spots in the lots west of Moody Street. Okay, there is no shortage of parking in Moody Street. But it just kind of just shows like the windshield perspective of so many people in the traffic commission that like if you have to even struggle to find a parking spot, if you can't just like pull up right to the street and find a spot right away, it's like there's a parking problem. Like usually parking problem means like you might actually have to spend like 2 or 3 minutes finding a spot as opposed to just pulling up like in a strip mall. But it just, again, just reiterates the windshield perspective of that permeates the traffic commission meetings that so little attention is paid to getting around other than via car. Clerk Joe Bizard, City Clerk Bizard had asked traffic engineer Garvin about the status of the engineering study that the city council approved money for a few months ago to study a more permanent pedestrianization of Moody Street. We can link to the RFP for that. Mike Garvin didn't have any update, but he hopes to hear back from the housing department, who is spearheading this sometime later in the spring. There was a question about whether the commission should wait until they hear back from the about the study to move further. But even if they did, I looked at the RFP and it involves several rounds of public input sessions. So we'll see in a future traffic commission meeting whether there are results of that study about the future of a more permanent solution for pedestrianizing Moody Street, but that's not going to have any bearing on this. One curious thing was several times, I think Bizarre mentioned it and some others mentioned it about this being alternative one, the option of leaving Moody Street open to cars and letting restaurants serve outside.
Mr. Bizarre.
I'm okay with moving on alternative one. I think as we go down the road on this, we might want to look at a temporary speed reduction due to this, if that's something we can do, and installing speed humps or something to make sure that cars that are...
There haven't been any other proposals. Like there's not other alternatives. No other city councilor has stepped forward like Councilor Paz, now former Councilor Paz, did last year when Mayor McCarthy said, I'm not going to support closing Moody Street to cars. There was no other alternative. So I don't know why Vizard and some others kept several times mentioned like this, we're going to approve alternative one when this was the setup. There are no other alternatives, at least on the record, that public record that any other councilors had brought forth to the traffic commission.
I believe I specifically asked Councilor Logan if he planned on it, and he said he was going to wait to see what the mayor had.
So yeah, alternative one was the mayor's proposal. And finally, I mean, just one continuing theme, like the whole framing of this is just like closing Moody Street and outdoor dining, and that's the end of it. Pretty much just like made this decision an inevitability. Like when you look at it as just like outdoor dining and you don't look at it from the context of a urban space that's free of cars, that so many people in that survey had alluded to in their responses, then yeah, letting restaurants serve outside, letting drivers use the street as normal, that seems like a winning combination. But only if you view it from through the lens of outdoor dining and not like a car-free public space. There was no mention of the Phantom Gourmet Festival that's happened the last few years on a closed Moody Street to cars. The mayor did mention in her letter in February that it would have to happen earlier in September around Labor Day as opposed to later in the month, but there was no discussion of that in the traffic commission meeting. So speaking of using Moody Street as something other than just to drive and park on, there's the Lions Club car show. If you remember, I think it was definitely last year. There was one last August, and then there may have been one 2 years ago also, 2 summers ago also. So as part of Moody Street being closed to cars and being this 6 or 5 or 6 block long, big public expanse, there was a car show one day last summer, end of last August, where all these old cars were brought in, people can come, and it was, I mean, whether or not you like cars, doesn't really matter. It was a good use of public space on a street that was closed to normal traffic. Okay, well, the Lions Club car show is going to be back again this year. Councilor Harris put it on the agenda right after the discussion about whether Moody Street would be open or closed to cars. Councilor Harris, Councilor Logan, Councilor LeBlanc all passionately spoke about this event bringing the community together, using the space, people reacquainting, people that hadn't seen each other for a long time, like re-meeting up. Just this whole juxtaposition of where the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the traffic commission meeting was basically Moody Street needs to go back to normal. It's like, let people drive on it, let people park on it. And now right afterwards, we have this whole passionate discussion about Moody Street can be a space where people come together. People can like reacquaint with each other to look at old cars, of course. Like apparently that's the only acceptable non-driving, non-parking use of Moody Street is a car show. Just the juxtaposition of these two back-to-back agenda items on the traffic commission meeting, again, kind of just representative of the mindset of so many people in charge in Waltham, that Moody Street is basically a street where it's a main street, but, oh, we can close it down to cars for a car show. One curious thing that'll be interesting, all these businesses that signed the petition, the 40 or so businesses, well, we assume that they're not going to get any business that day, right? Like you're now completely closed Moody Street to cars on August 17th. So I assume those businesses will just close for the day, right? The petition said that if people can't drive and park right in front, they can't get any business. So we'll see what happens to those 40 or so businesses on August 17th. There were some logistical discussions about having to close out the street, police details, because the street's not going to be closed to traffic like it had been in the past several summers. There was concern about like where will people park, especially with the embassy parking deck fully closed. Joe Vizard mentioned about maybe designated some like ride share and taxi drop off and pickup areas. He talked about this is almost verbatim, like maybe this is an idea, but maybe we can like discourage people from bringing their cars downtown. It's kind of like interesting that like why can't this be a theme year round? Like why can't we make Moody Street, Main Street more friendly to traverse outside of a car year round? Why is it only a concern when people might be coming from out of town to go to a car show? So again, like just getting back to like what we talked about with like public safety and safety of drivers. Why is it only a concern next to people that are eating behind Jersey barriers? Why is traffic? Why is people coming to Moody Street in their private cars? Why is it only a concern for a car show, not year round, when you are the body that can make things better year round for everyone, not just for people coming from out of town to go to a car show? So just so many like recurring themes in these first 25 or so minutes of the traffic commission last week. And if you go to the city website and you look at the calendar, the car show is already on there. So someone is really excited about this car show. It's already on the city calendar for August 17th. So mark your calendars, be there, look at the old cars.
It's absolutely not lost on me, like you said, that apparently the one acceptable reason to close Moody Street down, to not allow cars through, is to look at cars. That is the only acceptable time to stop.
I know. I was almost.
Cars.
I mean, it was a pretty much a fait accompli that this was going to get approved. The traffic commission approved it, but I was just hoping like someone on the commission would just say, why can't you just like hold us in an office park somewhere off like Cotton Pond Road or 128 or Winter Street or something? Like those are empty on a weekend. Why can't you just rent out that space? Like, why does it have to be on Moody Street? Well, it has to be on Moody Street because that's where people want to be.
Yeah.
But apparently, again, only for a car show, not for
Yeah,
like
only
any
on a
other
car, only
public
for a car
event.
show.
So
Well, I'm super stoked to eat outdoors with cars zipping past me so I can consume microplastics the whole summer. And we'll see how people feel about it.
yeah, I
It's
will
the-
be curious to see how many restaurants actually do proceed with this.
Mm.
I mean, I know some restaurants like Tempo, especially the ones closer to Maple Street, especially Tempo, like put up pretty elaborate displays. Even last year when they had less space to work with, only the parking area. I'd be curious if restaurants are going to do that, if people are going to be, if cars are going to, people are going to be driving like 2 feet away 24/7 from those setups. How much are restaurants going to invest in this? How many are even going to take part? I could see like a coffee shop like Common Good doing it. Sure, like I could just have a cup of coffee outside, but like the fine dining restaurants, I wouldn't be surprised if many don't decide to take part in it this year. But we'll see.
We will see. So thank you, Saul. Thank you, Jamie, for coming on. We will return with more news when the news happens. So thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.